say hello to all of you, welcome you for this second part of the online lecture of Thomas Grael, Rest, Rhythm and Resiliency, which is part of a research project of the dance department of the Academy of Dramatic Arts Zagreb, in which we explore different aspects of immune system. And so Thomas will today continue his sharing about or view of somatic perspective on different aspects of immune system functions. And that's it. So Thomas Grael.
Thank you. Thank you, Trinka. Yes, I mean, I have some ideas what to do today, but maybe if from last time there are some questions or some insights from you, Trinka, you were there, Aniela and Asia. If you have any questions or ideas or so to start with, and then we can go from there.
I can share that this idea or notion, or that the awareness of something is already the beginning of transformation. So we were talking about this being in this constant stressful situation or kind of sympathetic alertness, and that, or not giving ourselves what we need, but already like recognizing what we don't do, or that already that is kind of, yeah. So for me that stayed a lot, like because we cannot, like, it's not about making perfect conditions, but more like being in this dialogue, constant dialogue between impossibilities. So that's what's really nice to remember, and somehow it stayed. Yeah.
Maybe you're referring also to this question about the rhythm, and I want to go a little bit further in that direction today, because there is something very interesting, that each one of us has a personal rhythm, which I read a while ago, that the brain, our brains, or we don't have a sense of time, really. We don't have, like, every person has their own sense of time. That means also in my own experience, sometimes time seems very short, sometimes very long. Like 1 minute can be very long, and 1 hour can feel very short. And this is something which, interestingly, if you have two people and you have half an hour, for one person it might seem very long, for another person very short. Like when you're waiting in the post office, sometimes it's like you're waiting and then it's a long line, but then it seems no time and it's your turn. And another time you go to the post office and it's also a long line and you think, oh, you wait forever. It's like it's not going forward. But what that means is that if we want to kind of communicate with the world, with other people and with other groups or with other situations, we need to find a way, like we synchronize to a certain degree our rhythms. So in this, not only from the nervous system, the nervous system is the most obvious, of course, that we find a way to communicate. Is the nervous system is about communication and adapting and adjusting to whatever is happening inside of us and outside of us. So we need to find some way to meet. and that is very much related to the tone. And there is this interesting thing in language. I don't know in Croatian if this is the same, that the tone is like we say the readiness to be active, to respond, but the tone is also has a reference in musicality. So you always have this kind of these two aspects from like tone is something very much constricted or relaxed or released, but it's also about a certain musicality of a melody. Like if I say, okay, I have a melody and you have a melody, and we have both a rhythm, and we need to find a way to play together, to improvise together. And that's actually a very interesting research, like how people improvise together, how they cook together, how they play together, but also how they improvise music, improvise in dance, and they study. There's a study about a research about that. And so what me interests is that to continue on this question between the relationship of the nervous system and the immune system is that the immune system as the endocrine system, as the metabolic function, which is all called like involuntary or vegetative system, the like also in relation with the autonomic nervous system, we cannot directly influence or directly control, but our our state or um, how we adapt to the environment influences greatly how we feel ourselves. So how the immune system works. It's like with digestion also. Digestion is another metabolic function, which we cannot really directly influence as the heartbeat also. We cannot directly influence our digestion, but through a way of living, through lifestyle, and that's why it makes it a little bit difficult. And this question about the placebo effect, which was asked last time, is very interesting because in traditional medicine, it's or in like in allopathic medicine, it's all put in the department of placebo effects, lifestyle, and but doctors more and more realize that changes in lifestyle have a great impact on your health and your well-being, and because many diseases develop over so many years, it's like blood pressure or also as a pre-diabetes or obesity, all these kind of heart conditions and so on, they develop over such a long time, maybe 20, 30 years, that it's very difficult to make this cause and effect relationship. But more and more doctors realize that the lifestyle choices you make, it's nutrition, it's rest, it's movement, it's kind of sports, it's daily rhythms. They influence greatly how the health of your brain, health of your heart, and overall well-being. And so the way we can access the or develop or influence a healthy immune system is through basically lifestyle changes. And there I was thinking the term rest is often we use the term rest, like also in the title and also in this project you say rest and resilience. But rest is often used in a very, very reduced form. It's just like, okay, I take 1 hour and I sleep, or I lay down, or I read a book. But in fact, rest, the concept of rest is something much, much bigger. It means also uh, to change your state. So if you know a little bit about the autonomic nervous system, there's sympathetic and parasympathetic, and if you cannot rest, if you're active, you're more in the sympathetic part, and if you can rest and you recuperate, your digestion is turned on, your metabolism gets the time and the space to work out something. Um, you are more in the parasympathetic state. So if you want the real rest, means much more than just doing an hour of yoga, or doing sleeping for 1 hour, or because it means to shift your state. And this shifting of your state of activation is very critical for a healthy immune system, because we are um, we are set up, our organisms, like animals also, we're set up from the birth for survival. And if we feel we are not able to survive, we switch, our nervous system switches to the sympathetic mode. And it goes beyond just to be active, because sympathetic is also important for just being active, being awake. But when there is a sense of danger, or of survival, the need for survival, it shifts to a more extreme state of the sympathetic, and it cuts the connection to the body. And it not only cuts the connection to digestion and immune function, it suspends digestion, it suspends immune function, but it also cuts us off a feeling of our body, because in a real emergency, it's not very useful to feel, here or that, or my knees hurt, or this. But in a real state of emergency, it's important that you can act. You can defend yourself, or you can run away. And for that, it's not very helpful if you feel like your back is hurting or something. But you mobilize your energy, and it's supported by the endocrine system through the release of adrenaline and cortisol. Um, so because we are living in such a high demand world, this system is stimulated more than usual. And so when we get used to this kind of stimulation, it's much more difficult to shift back to a parasympathetic state. The result is we don't sleep so well. We have a lot of worries. We think a lot. Like, we are occupied. We cannot fall asleep. We're occupied by thoughts and all. But what it also does, it's suspending or putting the immune system constantly in a low state of activity. It kind of suppresses the immune system. Like I said last time also, the chronic inflammation is created because there is a constant state of inflammation in the immune system, which is never getting resolved, because the immune system is constantly suppressed, and this state of inflammation is not going wild, but it goes, it's like a kind of a fire or amber gluing in underneath, and it's constantly creating some damage in the body. But it's also a process of a very, very long time. So if we looking for rest, the efficient way of for looking for rest is not to just carve out 1 hour where I can do some yoga or do something else, but to find ways where I can shift my state from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And very often, also because we are living in such in a time where also rest and recuperation becomes a marketing strategy. So like everybody, like the services are marketed for your well-being, for your rest, take a massage, do this, do that. And it's never addressing really the issue that you could do also things in a more restful way. So like, okay, I accept that I have 8 hours work and these 8 hours are just like high demand. But how can I do in what can I do in these 8 hours? How can I do my work? How can I go in the dance studio and a dance? And I can do it in a different way, which is not just like 8 hours of activation, but I can find, and there we can come back to the rhythms. There are rhythms called ultradian rhythms. There are rhythms of about 1.5, 2 hours during the day, which shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic. So you are active for 1.5 hours, and then you feel like, okay, now I could have a little pause. I could drink something, go to the bathroom. So, but we often ignore that. After these 2 hours, we feel like a little lose of we feel it sometimes as a loss of energy. We feel it loss of energy, and then we are in the middle of something, we ignore it and we push ourselves to continue. Then after 4 hours, after 4 hours, you feel again maybe a little fatigue. But we get used to ignore these moments of listening to ourselves, and then we get more and more used to that. And at the end of the day, we are either completely exhausted or we cannot stop thinking or worrying, or we don't know how to wind down at the end of the day. So what I wanted to say is that to find real rest, you need to change your state of activation, and not just for half an hour or an hour, but you need to really become aware of, and that's what you said, Srinka, also. It's very important that you this to become aware of it, to slow down so you can really feel what's going on with you. And then just the last element is then when you shift that state, you also shift yourself into a zone, a region where you can learn, when you can take in something new. I think that it's very a key that why you're saying, Trinka, also that it's related to learning. It's related to learning because in the high sympathetic state, you cannot learn anything because you are in a fear state, in an activated state where you constantly are checking your survival. But to learn something, you need to shift your state to be in the learning zone, and then you are receptive for new information, which allows to connect what is coming from outside as new information and how you feel inside. So you can be affected about um, what you're experiencing and what you are supposed to learn. You're not just trying to put it in. Yes, Mir, you wanted to say something. Mir.
Yes, I don't know what is the structure. Can we interrupt you? But
Gee, certainly.
You inspired me now. I am working in school with children between first and eighth grade, so primary school. And there is always this stratification between children who are cognitively more capable and they are learning well and, you know, fulfilling their tasks, and the other ones who are not following, like, who are like not managing with learning and fulfilling their tasks
Mm.
from, you know, the school. And there is not enough, I think there is not enough accent on the fact that many of the children of these children are having um, some troubles at home, and therefore they're all the time alert. You
Yes.
know, this what you described now, their neurovegetative system is highly activated, and therefore they cannot learn, they cannot
Yeah.
study. I mean, they cannot sit quietly, like peacefully, and concentrate enough. And partially, you know, the school system is aware of it, but it's much more. Still, it is much more putting the emphasis on their like cognitive incapacity than on the fact that they are maybe that their you know, nervous system is hijacked, and
Yeah.
this is like the crucial thing, I think, also for their self-esteem, because they are given the message that they are cognitively defective because they cannot follow
Yeah.
what is asked from them. But as I work with children with disabilities, they through work with them, I see that it is not only their difficulty, you know, their developmental difficulty, but it's maybe even more. They are conditioned by the situation at home.
Mm.
Are they feeling safe
Yes.
with their parents or with their siblings? Or are they exposed to too much disturbing content over the screens and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I wanted to say this because you really now somehow the way how you said what you said made it for me very clear. Yeah, this is the horrible thing that we do to children. You know, through
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
still not understanding why learning is not functioning when you are
Under stress.
distressed.
And we don't know what effect it has on the immune system of the children. I think these are very big questions. It's almost like children, we're doing experiments with children because there is a new generation growing up, which has so much stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, much more than we had when we were children, or each generation seems to have another level of that overstimulation. And now with social media, it's a total other level. Mm. Um, I wanted to say also a few more words about what does it mean to change a state of activation. Um, I think, I mean, if you learning, you can learn many things. You can learn also to get used to stress. So learning is something, if you say it can something can mean something very neutral. It doesn't mean learning doesn't mean always it's good. You learn good things. You can also learn something which is not useful anymore. So it maybe at the time when you learned it, it was useful because it's a way of coping with some situation. But then maybe a few years later or a week later, it's not useful anymore. Um, but because it is learned, we can also unlearn it. And there are many ways to unlearn it through different practices. One is breathing, other is meditation. movement, dance, theater. There are many ways where things habits you accumulated in your life, you can unlearn, and through this unlearning, you create a different relationship to, if you want, to your immune self. So if we will say, if we know there is not just one self, there are many selves. There are like Francisco Varela, this Chilean biologist, he was saying is a meshwork of selves. So it's like a multi-layering of selves. And so, like we touched last time with the microbiome, what we call our self on this metabolic level is what we perceive as self is a combination of our own biological body with millions of bacteria and viruses and fungi. So it is what, without this microbiome, we would not be who we are. But we are, because we are more than one. And so on an immune level, we are many also. We are also cells, singular cells, which go around in the body to to communicate with other cells. It's not only cells which are in the skin and they stay in the skin for forever, or the cells in the heart, but we are also cells which are mobile and go around in the body. So it's which have their own way of relation or relating with the environment. I think that's very, very interesting and capturing. So what I would like to invite you for an exploration is how breathing, heart regulation, and circulation, blood circulation, are connected with the bone marrow, with the mitochondria in each cell, and how this the awareness of all this other level of organization in our body needs space and needs to be left alone and not interfered with. And that's the kind of the side effect of this kind of journeys, if you want to, we call somatization. So like you use your imagination to direct your attention in your body. It's very, very regulative for the autonomic nervous system, because you cannot do this somatizations in a sympathetic state. You need to, and it happens automatically, you need to just open your perception and regulate your system in a way that you can receive new information, let in new information and new sensations into your body. And if you think, am I doing it right? Or should I do it like this? Is it better like this or like that? If you then it's interfering with this process as much as it's interfering with the function of your immune system. So if you find a comfortable place, you can sit, or you can lean somewhere, or you can even lay down if you want. But for a moment, keeping your eyes open. So it's about this kind of resting I was talking about, but resting much more in the sense of shifting your awareness and shifting your state of activation or of being in that moment. And this shifting, first of all, is related to the awareness. If we often we are also if we work in this field of care or therapy or even as dancers, we are also used to shift our attention to other people, to observe, to evaluate. But now it's like turning the flashlight, turning it in the other direction, and using our capacity to focus on ourselves. So directing, or I'm going to direct your attention to different places and use your imagination to direct your attention. So starting again, just putting, no, in maybe even before, just to notice whatever is there in this moment, what's calling your attention. So it's bringing your focus to whatever is there in this moment. So not yet to say, okay, feel this or feel that, but opening your attention to let the things emerge. And it can be very simple. It can be a thought, can be a memory, an image, or it can be a sensation, the contact with the chair or with the floor. Can be something pleasurable, can be something painful, or something you notice in this moment. And at the same time, noticing your breathing. And again, without changing anything, just noticing your breathing, observing your breathing. How do you inhale? How do you exhale? Not forcing anything, not not controlling the breathing, just letting it happen as it happens. We breathe all the time. We don't need to pay attention to breathing. It's automatic and autonomic. And as you observe your breath, your breathing, notice also little tonal changes in your shoulders, around your ribs, in your upper body. So when you inhale, what happens when what do you feel when you inhale? What do you feel when you exhale? Is anything changing or it stays completely the same? And then lift your right arm a little bit up, just a few centimeters, and let it go down again. Just a little bit and let it down again. So very, very simple way activating the muscles in the arm to lift it and then rest it again. And just do a few times, maybe 3, 4 times, and really letting it fall a little bit. So not necessarily lowering it, but dropping it. It's a difference between lowering and dropping. And then again, observe your breathing. And if you notice any difference between the two shoulders. And then do the other side. Lift the left arm a little bit and drop it. A little lifting and dropping. 3 or 4 times. And then again, just observe what's happening with your breathing. And notice what little tonal change is happening when you inhale and when you exhale. And then see if you can make inhale and exhale the same length. Not a big change, but just making inhale and exhale the same length. You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, like however you want, but that the inhale and exhale, you count the same number. And when you inhale, lifting your arms a little bit, but without losing the contact with where your arms are resting. And when you exhale, you let go. So it's not really lifting your arms, but it's just the tonal change. You inhale, you activate the muscles a little bit, and with the exhale, you let go. But inhale and exhale the same length. And then with your imagination, and maybe it can be visual, but it can be include also other sensations. Follow from your mouth, in the back of your mouth, through your throat, down the trachea and the bronchi into your lungs. Just this image of a inverted tree, like the bronchi, they divide more and more to the bronchioli, and till they end in very, very small little tubes in the alveoli, the little bubbles in the lungs, where the gas exchange is happening. Gas exchange meaning that the oxygen is diffusing through these membranes into the blood, and the carbon dioxide is diffusing from the blood into the lungs. And using your imagination to go all the way, following all the way down into these little bubbles where the gas exchange is happening. And these bubbles, these alveoli, they are kind of hugged. It's like little fingers. On one side is the oxygenated blood, and on the other side, the carbon dioxide blood. So that is how the diffusion is happening. And from the side where the oxygenated blood is then collected, all these little blood vessels collecting and going back to the heart. Go from the lungs to the heart, and from the heart it goes into the body. The oxygenated blood goes into the body. And it's very much also like a tree with many branches. First, there are like the aorta, the very big blood vessels, and then when it goes further in the periphery, they get smaller and smaller and smaller, so they can reach every place in the body. And this oxygenated blood is going to diffuse in the spaces between the cells and then diffuse through the membrane of the cells into the cells. And from there, the oxygen is going into the mitochondria, which are the power plants of the cells which produce all our energy. And just stay for a few moments with this image of inhaling and exhaling, oxygenating the blood going into the periphery, going to the intercellular spaces, going inside the cells. Then the carbon dioxide is leaving the cells, goes back into the veins, goes back to the lungs, from the lungs again in the heart, in the periphery, from the periphery back to the heart, from the heart in the lungs. So there is a constant exchange happening. And notice, how is your breathing? Are you still having the in and the exhale the same length? And if you want, and maybe your state allows now, you can make the inhale and the exhale maybe one count longer. So if you have had three counts inhale, 3 counts exhale, you can make maybe now 4 counts inhale and 4 counts exhale, or if you can go from 4 to 5. And still noticing if you, with the inhale, your tone increases a little bit, and with the exhale, you can release the arms and the shoulders. So with each exhale, you release a little bit more the tone, and let go of some holding in your arms and shoulders. But maybe also in your legs, in your head, in your neck, in other places. And if you want, you can also, with the exhale, you can also make a little sound, just like letting your throat and your lungs vibrate a little bit with the exhale. Mm. Just a gentle humming, which allows you to feel more also your throat and the branching into the lungs. But maybe you feel this vibration also in your arms and in your hands. Mm. And maybe the exhale becomes even longer without changing the inhale. So maybe if you have 4 counts inhale, the exhale can be 5, 6, or 7, can be longer. It doesn't matter. As long as the exhale is longer than the inhale, it's okay. Mm. And then bring your attention to your skin. Maybe also your skin has a certain tone. So you feel maybe with the exhale also your skin can release. And even a layer underneath the skin. So there is the surface of the skin, and underneath the skin there is a layer of fat. Maybe also that layer can release. And then underneath that layer of skin, this fat layer of the skin, there are the muscles. And if you like, just to move a little bit your shoulders and move a little bit your arms, you feel like how the skin is sliding over the muscles. There is mobility between the skin and the muscles. And underneath the muscles, there are the bones. And there is a sliding between the muscles and the bones. And especially if you want in the arms, if you just turn your hand, rotate your hand in and out, you feel like the muscles are sliding around the bones. But do it in a way that so you still stay attuned with your breath, with your breathing. So there's still the breathing can be the in and exhale can be an equal length, or the exhale can be a little longer, or you can still do some humming or vibration. Mm. And then also your bone has a skin, which is called the periost. And this skin allows the sliding of the muscles over the bone, so the muscles are not sticking to the bone. The tendons are sticking to the bones, but the muscles are sliding over the bones. And if you want, you can put your other hand, like one arm is moving, the other hand is touching the forearm. And you can feel this movement. You can, if you hold your arm a little bit, you can feel the bones moving inside the flesh. And you can feel the bones because they are very concrete. They're very hard in a way compared to the flesh, to the skin, to the muscles, to the fat. It's all soft, but then the bone is more hard and more clear because it's more hard. And what really feel this hardness comes from the most outer layer of the bone underneath the periost, which is the compact bone. It gives the bone stability and allows this feeling, or gives this feeling of not rigidity, of solidity, maybe of like a solid structure where you can put weight, you can clearly move your arm in space because your bone gives it a certain direction, a certain vector, a certain clarity. And this is coming from the compact bone. And it's very clear when you move like that there is the bone and then there is a joint. And the joint allows movement between the bones. Just adding to this clarity is like, like a puppet or something like that. It's like Pinocchio has a very clear feeling where there is movement and where is the movement happening and when there is this bone in between the joints. And where is the flesh around the bone? And how the flesh can also just relax. The flesh can hang off the bones. And then there are also other layers of the bone. So if you continue just to move the way you like to move, so you don't need to be sitting, you can also be rolling or standing or change your position in the way you like. There is another layer of the bone which is called the spongy bone or the trabecular structure of the bone, which is more space. It's like the long bones are built like a cathedral, with the arches, there is a structure which transmits the forces in a spiralic way in the bone. But there are many, many spaces in between. It's a kind of, if it would be in open space, it would be air. But these spaces of the trabecular bone or spongy bone, these spaces are filled with the bone marrow. And the bone marrow is the origin of all the blood cells. So all blood cells in the body come from the bone marrow. There is a constant production of blood cells, and there is a need of a constant production because blood cells usually don't have a very, very long lifespan. They're constantly produced. There's an incredible amount of blood cells produced every day, around 500 billion blood cells every day. And there are red blood cells and white blood cells. And the red blood cells are the ones which are carrying the oxygen from the lungs to the cells, to the mitochondria, while the white blood cells become a variety of different immune cells. So our vitality, like oxygen and transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in exchange, contributes greatly to the nourishment of the body and the vitality of each cell. And the white blood cells contribute to the immunity, which doesn't mean only the defense system of the body, like we said last time. Immunity means much more a way, a mode of communication with internal and external substances, bacteria, viruses, and so forth. But the red marrow, which is in adults, is mostly in the sternum, in the pelvic halves, in the clavicles, and in the vertebrae, and the in the vertebrae. So if you put your hand on the sternum, if you like, or on your pelvis, or just use your imagination to contact the bone marrow or the quality of the bone marrow. Some people say it's like lava, it's like it's the source of life, of our vitality, and when the bone marrow is not working anymore, like in leukemia, then the consequence is lack of oxygen, like anemia and immune deficiency. All kind of problems can arise from that. But it's a constant renewal of our energy, of our blood cells. So how do you feel that bone marrow in yourself? And maybe it's not what you would call a sensation. It's more like if you want a more poetic way, how your unconscious mind is talking to you, like in a dream or in an image or in a vision or something like that. What if you just open yourself to whatever emerges from this image or emerges as an image from the bone marrow, from this source of life? And bones are highly vasculated. We might think our bones is something dry because when we see them, dead bones or chicken bones or something, they look very different than they are in the living body. There is blood going and coming a lot. So they are very, very vasculated. And for good reason, because they bring the blood cells into circulation, and they bring the immune cells into circulation. They're connecting everything back to the heart, to the lungs. And allowing a constant exchange, constant renewal of our life forces. And life forces in these two ways, in the great diversity of immune cells, and in the supplying the body with blood cells, which are red blood cells and other blood cells, which are responsible for carrying oxygen to the cells and carrying carbon dioxide to the lungs. And maybe you can still notice also your breathing, and if anything has changed and how your tone feels right now, how there are this subtle tonal changes with inhaling and exhaling. And maybe you notice also how your state has changed in this exploration, in this somatization. How if you feel now tired or refreshed, or you feel balanced in a different way, you feel also what can be called coherence, which is a very important term. When we shift the state, when the breathing becomes more regular, then the heart also starts to find a rhythm which is regular in an irregular way, or irregular in a regular way, because the heartbeat is changing all the time, adjusting to the breathing, adjusting to the level of activation. So the irregularity of the heart is also a measure for your state. When the heart gets too irregular, you are out of sync, you're out of coherence. But when the breathing and the heart are in a smooth way interrelated, then there is this coherence, and it's a indication for coherent and parasympathetic state. And the breathing and the imagination are one of the ways to connect to this coherent state. If you like, you can come back also to humming, creating some sensations, creating vibration, and anything which comes up for you now from this last half hour or so, anything, any image which was important for you, either mitochondria or the breathing or the alveoli, the gas exchange, or the bone marrow. As much as also any thoughts or images which are present for you in this moment. How is this place which called your attention in the beginning, which was drawing your focus, where you put your focus in the very beginning? How does it feel now? And then just take a few more minutes to continue what you do, or to move, or to rest. To stretch, or to bring this exploration to a closure for yourself. Or if you want to take some notes, write something down. Or if you're with another person, you want to exchange your experience. Just to add one element, which is with every breath, you connect to the environment in a way that we are depending on the oxygen produced by plants, and the plants are depending on the carbon dioxide we are exhaling. So there is a constant exchange with the environment of oxygen and carbon dioxide, like in a larger picture, a symbiosis with the plant life, with the chlorophylla, with the chlorophyll life, and we have the mitochondrial life. But also is a constant exchange with the bacteria, viruses, which all floating around us, and with each inhale and exhale, we are part of that. We become part of that atmosphere we are creating together.
Thank you for this exploration. Like, what I wanted to share, or what is like was interesting for me, was this like imagination and the experience that imagination. I was when I read imagination in the description of your lecture, I was already there, like, oh, how do we put imagination in there? And now when you said like imagination, and like my experience of it was that imagination in itself is wholeness. It's like it includes it's the whole context, and not like the specific. There is, and somehow like this potential of imagination is really like you are immediately
Whole.
whole and transformed, like the whole is transformed. And it's for me it's very interesting in this, working with something that is in the body, that is very specific, and that it can easily go into this nervous system, not like, is it
Yeah.
the right place, am I there, what does it feel, or when I let myself, for me, it was very clearly when I let go of that and when the image comes, which is maybe, I mean, it's from that place, but it's also like the whole world in itself. And I was thinking like also in like in relation to working in arts, like what is imagination? It's like you have the whole context somehow, or it's not one idea. It's like, so for me that was interesting to experience or explore in relationship to these anatomical or physiological uh, elements or ideas. Yeah.
Well, in our practice, we use often the word visualization, which I don't like because it limits to the visual sense, which imagination I use much more in the Jungian sense of a multisensory, which includes also hearing and smell and all the specialized senses, but especially also sensations, proprioception, interoception, sense of movement, which some of you maybe know also authentic movement, which is based on the idea of active in imagination of Jung, which is not about having any visual images, but it's about the image of movement. And I think in that way, what you're saying, Trinka, it's much more integral. It's much more, there is a component of the imagination which is really sensual, which is movement, which is proprioceptive, which is interoceptive, like the sense of something else. And I think that's when it's very, very interesting. It becomes also poetic and it goes beyond the image of anatomy. The anatomy, images, anatomy images are often so reduced, so almost mechanical. And then we kind of, with our imagination, we can give really life to that. And that makes the difference, and that has a great influence on the immune function. But not in the sense that we are better to defend ourselves. It's not that. It's that we are more in communication, and we allow the body and our cells to be more in communication, to be more alive.
It's very interesting because sometimes like you imagine something that is not here, but actually it's here through the sensations. It's really interesting. Like where is what you imagine? Yeah.
But that is the usual use of the word imagination. It's something which is not real, which is just imagined. But yes, this is one meaning of the word imagination for somewhere, fantasy. But there are many other ways of using the word imagination than that. Much more concrete and rooted in the present moment.
I wanted to ask how can we use this in like a normal day-to-day life? Said something about 2 hours and then like you already feel like you need to rest and then 2 hours again. So when you're like working or in that sympathetic state this whole day, for example, how can we maybe switch to like parasympathetic in like an active day-to-day life?
For me, that it's a research, but there's also a kind of a indication what we can look for. What we can look for in this research is how we regulate tone. That's why, and tone related to breathing and then leading to coherence. There is in the like imagination, tone, breathing, and coherence are in some way interrelated, because when I'm when you're more in the sympathetic state, your tone is raising. You know, when you, it's very, very obvious when you're very relaxed, like you come back from a week on the beach or something, and you are not so reactive. It's very clear. You are, or when you're sick, you're not reactive. You're just like, okay, well, nothing is bothering you. When you are like stressed, and somebody comes says, "Can you do that for me?" And then you just sometimes you just freak out because you're hyper vigilant. It's because your tone is already so high that a little stimulation is enough to make you freak out. So observing your tone during the day, observing your breathing, which is very much related to your tone, is can give you an entry into regulating yourself during the day. And there's something sometimes I talk about like an over curve or an under curve. So if sympathetic often is like we're doing it like this in an over curve. There's like this tone, and this tone allows you only do something from above. But with the parasympathetic, it's like your tone is lowering, and then you can do it like from below. That's like we in BMC we call it going under the tone. Or going over the tone. So going under the tone, you're kind of using your resources in a good way. If you go over the tone, you use your resources in a kind of an edgy way, which is also okay. It's not good or bad, but if you're 8 hours in this overtone, you might really exhaust yourself. So maybe you can be 1.5 hours in this overtone and then half an hour in the undertone, and then again overtone, undertone, in this kind of where the rhythm comes in. Yet you feel like during the day you can go through these different rhythms, and that's why it's related to the heart rhythm, to the breathing. It's like internal, external rhythms. You can find a way of coping during the day, and the tone is the key for that. I think the base is feeling if you are more oriented towards the outside or more oriented towards inside. So it's like sympathetic and parasympathetic are also different in the way that the parasympathetic is more like you want to withdraw a little from the world. You want to just be a little bit more calm and rest or recuperate, while the sympathetic state is more an engagement to the outside. And you can feel that as like the need for drinking something, or for need for a pause, or to rest, or to, oh no, I don't want to talk again to another person. I don't want to engage to the outside, but I want to just to be with myself and reflect and process and integrate things. And then maybe you feel like, oh, okay, now I start to get interested again in the world. And I notice it sometimes. I just need some moments to integrate, and then the next thing comes saying, yeah, I would like to, I forgot I wanted to call this person. I want to write to this person. So, but just 10 minutes before, it didn't appear to me because I was like kind of stuck in something. And then I take some moments to settle, to process what happened, and then something opens. So it's this kind of feelings or this kind of experiences. It's like yin and yang, you don't,
Yeah.
not to think about black and white, but it's like really, it's like when there is rest, there's also some activity. When there is activity, there can be also some rest. So finding the rest in the activity and the activity in the rest. It's really like really a very englobing principle, because sometimes when we active, we just lose the sense of rest or sense of connection. And when we rest, we just collapse and we. So what is that? How we can find that?
And I can say that like in dance, in movement and in dance, it's there, like it's inherent to dance, this balance or this, that activity and rest are in there. And then like what is really interesting is what happens when we study dance or when it becomes a profession. And so it opens all these research is actually about that, how then to prepare people to become professionals in dance, where this balance, that is inherently there, is so easily lost. And also in the study program or rhythm of the day.
Yeah.
So there are many questions. It's not so easy to implement all these insights into the programs, of course, but it's tiny steps to understand more and more, like, yeah, these processes of learning and unlearning. That is also interesting, that it's also active process. We are not learning something to stay there, but we need to be open for unlearning also. That was another interesting thing for me. Yeah.
Well, and when I watch a dance performance, I'm really looking also for these tonal changes, because I find it as an observer sometimes really exhausting to watch a performance where it's like for 1 hour or more, it's just the same tone. It's just continuing the same tone. If when it's intentional, I think it's interesting when it's intentional because it's about the intensity. But if it's not intentional, it feels like it's blocked in some way. It loses dynamic, the dynamic, and I think that that's something I'm very affected if there's a performance which leaves that space for the observer to also regulate yourself. But if you're constantly bombarded, then it's very difficult to participate as an observer. It doesn't leave space for imagination.
Yes. Agree.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Thomas, and thank you all for coming and participating. And